Welcome to the Inside Out podcast. I'm your host, Jojo, and this is where we will navigate the mess together. That is mental, emotional, and spiritual. Let's get messy. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. If you're new here, well, you're about to go on a journey with my guest, David Goldstein, and I. We are about to break down the interconnected dynamics between men and women. And I feel like he and I have this sort of dynamic already that you guys are going to pick up on throughout the episode and throughout this conversation of communication and what that really can look like and does unfold, whether that's interpersonal relationships, romantic relationships, family, friends, you name it. But it sort of feels like men and women speak two different languages. And that's what we wanted to break down. So David is he is in the branding space now and consulting and coaching, which is, I've worked with him personally, and that was such an insightful part of not this conversation, but before he got into branding and consulting, he was actually a dating coach and was helping particularly men and then transitioned to helping women sort of finding their person and like what that really looks like. And so we're just going to get into it. We're going to get messy. It is going to be a very messy conversation, but I'm excited. And David, welcome to Inside Out.
How messy are we going to get today, Jojo? Okay, let's do it. I'm down. You know, I love listening to your show, and I love how we met through the live that I did with Kevin. And yeah, I'm just excited to get vulnerable with you today.
Amazing. Well, I'm really honored that you wanted to come on and have this conversation because, man, I think this is like a very important one to have. And I think there's a lot of vulnerability, but also tension when it comes to communication, just from the different sides. And I guess my first question for you is, what do you wish that women would better understand about the way that men communicate?
Yeah, I'm gonna apologize to your audience in advance if there's like a pause between questions, because these are gonna go deep. And obviously my answer is my own opinion in life, going from not having a lot of success in my social life, in my dating life, to reading every book, watching every YouTube channel, even hiring coaches to get to the point where I felt like I've had it figured out. I thought I had women figured out, you know, like I knew what they wanted to hear, how they wanted to respond to me. But I think it's really difficult for a man to like always have a woman figured out, and vice versa. It might be difficult for a woman to like always have a man figured out, because the way that we are communicating, the way that we are interacting, it also has to do with biology and with human nature. So it's not just like, okay, here's this really well-off businesswoman and here's this really well-off businessman. They're just going to be like a natural match. No, there needs to be like a spark, and also there needs to be some kind of polarity. And so I think that with emotions at play, and some people are more emotional than others, there needs to be in communication at least the feeling that one of the two is like the emotional leader. One of the two is able to lead when things are challenging. And if the man doesn't have a strong purpose, if he doesn't know what he wants, if he's not working on himself, then to show up for a woman in a way that she is looking for is oftentimes very, very challenging. So back to your question, I think that men wish women would understand that they don't all just want to get laid. And a lot of men are looking for something much deeper. But it takes two to tango, right? So on the one hand, if a man or a woman is too emotionally available, too available on the schedule, it might be deemed as unattractive because it may almost be looked at as like they're easy. On the other hand, though, if the woman is taking hours to respond to every text message or not open to getting onto a phone call or looking for the man to take her out to a five-star fancy restaurant for the first date, then there's also going to be like expectations that are not in line with reality. And we have become more polarized as a society over the last few years in politics and business, but also in dating. And I think that in the Western countries, like we're both from the US, that there's a lot of expectations that get put onto the man these days. And if he's not able to meet all of those expectations, that maybe the woman just disqualifies him and says, he's not my Prince Charming. I'm going to move on and find something better. And I've recently been through a breakup, so I understand the whole like the grass is always greener on the other side. But in the same time, the grass is greener where you water it. And just because the first date
Mm.
wasn't perfect, and just because the guy didn't say exactly what you wanted to hear, doesn't mean that he's not worth a chance.
Wow, you said a lot of really, really key things there. A lot of it with expectations is a huge heavy hitter in this, dating game and connection. But another thing you said was vulnerability and like that dance and that tango of one person leading in emotional conversations. It is a dance. It is a tango. It is a waltz. It's a bachata. It's craziness. But there's also a very big energetic exchange. And I'm curious why there's a retreat that happens. Because from my female lens, and I think a lot of women that I talk to experience this, when things start to get real, there's a pullback. And it's almost like a whiplash. And we most of the time sort of understand that or internalize that as they don't care, they're not interested, and we start running with this entire narrative. So I guess like what is that all about? Because this is common across all of everything I've ever talked to anybody about.
All of history, there's always been like the man that got the woman to like fall in love with him, and maybe he like got her pregnant, and then he's like, all right, but now I'm going to run off to war, or I'm going to go off to the hunt. And she's like, but you're leaving me behind and the family, like, do you really care about me? And recently that kind of happened to me where it's like I get into this relationship and I'm like, but I kind of want to continue to travel. And she's like, but I thought you wanted to settle down and have kids and make a life. And it's like expectations are the root of our suffering. I think Tony Robbins talks about that.
Mhm.
And in order to get to that place of non-attachment, we've got to come to grips with what are the expectations that we're creating, not only on ourselves, but also on others. And I think that one thing that I've been doing really well recently is when I'll meet a woman for like the first time, I'll do this thing. It's called RBDSM, and it's like not BDSM like what you think
I
of,
was
but
gonna say, what?
it's like relationships, boundaries, desires, sexual health, and then meaning and aftercare. So, like, let's say you get intimate with that person, you've already talked about all those things before you have that intimate moment, before you start to get, physical or emotional with that person. Like, I have to say though, that first time that you talk about it, it might not be enough. Like maybe you need to have that RBDSM conversation or some form of conversation around your relationship, your desires, your goals, how you're feeling, maybe on a weekly or monthly basis. You've got to set time aside not only for the romantic date with the petals and the warm bath, but also like the safe space to have that conversation. And one thing that I'll say that I've learned in my last relationship is that men and women, I think, communicate their boundaries around safety in different ways and at different times. And I think also getting to an understanding with the person that you're dating, with the person that you are engaged to or you're married to, around where and how is that safe place to have that conversation. Because it's like you're not going to show up and talk to your therapist on the sidewalk in New York City. I mean, maybe they did it as like a social media prank, but it's probably very unlikely. You're going to have like, a closed room or an unrecorded Zoom call. But sometimes with your like person that you're super intimate with, that you're dating, that you're in love with, you'll be having that like super vulnerable chat with them at the restaurant. And there's all these other people around. Or you'll be doing it in the car, and then like the dad or the mom calls, and that actually happened to me one time. That actually happened, and it really put a dent in the relationship because, yeah, I said to my parent that called, like, yeah, I'm alone, just what's up, and then like they started talking about my partner. So that was crazy, and we were on a crazy road trip too. So I think that, I'm trying to like take the hat off and I'm not trying to be like Matthew Hussey or any of the like big name dating coaches and
I
just
mean, but
speak
we
from
love.
we love them, but like just speak from my own recent experience that having a really challenging conversation with someone over lunch or dinner might not be the same as going and putting a blanket out on the beach or in the park and, you know, getting grounded and looking eye to eye without any distractions. Because when you have that intimate moment and you want to deepen connection, I think it really needs to be done in a sacred way.
I hear that. I'm not sure if that necessarily responds to the question of like, why is there the pull away?
All right. Well, okay. I love how you circle back and you challenge me to really answer your question. All right. So I think the man pulls away for a variety of different reasons. Number one, if the woman is being difficult, and she may not think she's being difficult, but if he thinks that she's being difficult around certain things like finances, or if she, you know, is complaining a lot, or if they're not having a good sex life, those are all reasons why a man might pull away. Also, if she's kind of like the jealous type, that's like, so let me see your phone. Like, what did you do with that girl? What about this girl? Another reason why. But I think the biggest reason why a man might pull away is because he fears that he's not enough for her. And he's not going to be enough for her in the long run. And that she's going to lose attraction to him, or he's going to lose attraction to her. And a lot of men, just the minute that they realize that, they're like, I don't want to have to work through the challenging parts of the relationship where maybe we fall out of love and then we fall back in love. I'll just go and chase and replace and move on to the next one. And we live in
Mm.
this speed dating society where you can just pop back on Bumble or Hinge or whatever, and you can like find the next date, or you can go out to the bar and out to the club or meet a person on the street, and it's like, boom, all of a sudden I've just replaced that dopamine hit from that other person with this new person, and they're novel, and they've got a different color hair, and they have a different tone of voice, and I like the way they smell, and it's like, oh, but I don't know about their problems like I knew my ex partner. So it's always easier, I think, for the man to just be like, you know what, she's not perfect. So yeah, I'm just going to move on. But I will say this, like, it does work both ways. And I know that women do the same thing.
Do we? Do we?
What about
Huh.
you? What do you think? Because you told me you have like an opinion.
Well, I think men pull away and not like, okay, it's twofold, right? It's either they're not interested and they just don't want to like be honest with you, or like they're just, seeing other people and that's fine. And they think that, or if they've witnessed a really big emotional reactions in the past to whomever, so they just sort of like slowly dissipate into the background. But what I'm noticing, just generally, and also what I've been through is more of a hot and cold. and more of like like a push-pull dynamic. Like my last relationship was so push-pull. It was
I
like,
never thought you would bring up the push pull, but I love it. Keep going.
really? Why?
Because you know that's like a dating term, like push pull.
Well, yeah, we're talking about dating.
Yeah, like you know that that's like a technique that guys are like taught when they hire like a dating coach is to how to like push and then like pull away. And that's supposed to like raise the level of attraction because the moment that the man is like always available, the woman becomes unattracted and stops responding. But whenever the man like pulls away, like let's say that the couple is going through the breakup and the guy wants to like get the girl back. What do the breakup recovery coaches always teach their clients? Like, don't message her, just make her think about you, or something like that, like
Oh
pulling
my
away.
gosh. That's like the all the femme fatale stuff that you see nowadays on social media. It's like the dark,
That's what I
mysterious, make me
mean.
crave you. No, I think, okay, that to me, and that makes sense what you were saying about like the toxic sort of part of, the dating culture and dating coaching. I don't subscribe to any of that. I think that is manipulation. I think that is psycho, to be honest, just to really lay it out there. And the push pull, like if someone's actually doing that intentionally, I want no part of it. Like that to me is so unattractive. Authenticity, like reality. Like I would rather a man just be like truthful with how he feels, whether he's like, I'm scared shitless, or he's like, I'm not into you, or he's like, I'm in love with you and I don't know what the fuck to do with this because I could lose you and then I'm back like completely messed up all over again. And I've been through this before and I'd rather just protect myself. So
And should he be
that's like,
doing that like in the rain in like the middle of Central Park when you guys are just like holding each other at the waist? Like
I
because
mean,
I love what you're saying, Jojo. I just think that it's an idealistic way of viewing it because most men are just not that open. They're just not that direct. And they're like
okay,
afraid of being really honest with another woman.
why? Why are you guys afraid of being honest with us? Maybe that's the root of this question.
Maybe it's partly to do with rejection. I know for me, like having been rejected thousands of times, if you go through it a lot in a short period, you can get kind of numb to it. But if you don't go through it all the time, you kind of fear it because it can kind of like hurt your ego and your own self-worth a little bit. And you start to question, like, did I do something wrong? Like, am I the problem? Like, yes, you are the problem. Like, just come to grips with that. But none of us want to admit that. And part of vulnerability, which you talked about, like vulnerability is a superpower. So it can be used for good, but as you said, it can be also used for like manipulation. And I don't personally think that push pull is manipulative because I think that dating is a dance. And when you're dancing salsa, I was dancing salsa last night, you move forward and then you move backwards and then you move side to side. And in dating and relationships, it's the same way. Like sometimes one of the partners is going to go on a trip and the other partner is not going to be able to come with them. Sometimes one person's going to want to go in one direction, naming the child or, where we're going to go for dinner, and the other partner's not going to want to go in that same direction. So, a part of a relationship to make it work is being able to flow, to play,
Mm-hmm.
to return to being a child where we actually embraced our emotions, cried when we felt something, and shouted when we didn't get something that we wanted, rather than keeping it all bottled up. And sometimes it's like the bottle is just getting shaken up and up and up and up. And then you get to that point where you break up and all the emotions start flowing out. And I know for me, sometimes it's like, well, where was that the last month or 2 months? Like, we should have been expressing those emotions to each other during this period. So, one of the things is like, there are a lot of programs for men to get help these days. I will say that. Some people say there's not. I think there are. I think there's tons of men's coaches and communities and whatnot. Maybe there's more for women. I don't know. I haven't done the math. But not enough men actually get into those experiences. Because the men think that what they need to do to chase happiness is most of the time external. It's like the girlfriend that they deem hot, like the car, the sports car that they want to drive, like the home that they want to buy. But really, they need to work more on themselves. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons why men pull away is because they're scared to actually see their own shadow. And a woman is the greatest shadow that a man will ever meet in his life.
I mean, I could say the same thing because I think in the right dynamic, in the right relationship, you're going to be met with a mirror. It's not just going to be some superficial surface level. I mean, you can have that and that's great and that's fine. And that's the external. But I love what you said about it's all that internal work because when that person is in your life, you have to look at it. I mean, I always make this analogy, but you can't get stronger by thinking like if you're in the gym, you have to actually pick up weight and bicep curl weight. You can't bicep curl air. And it's the same when you're in a relationship. You can't like work on yourself outside of a relationship. Like if you're trying to grow and expand who you are internally, my belief, I mean, yes, there is work that you have to do on the flip side and by yourself, 1,000%, but you're not actually going to get stronger and notice your shadows, your insecurities, your flaws, your anger, your jealousy, whatever that gambit of emotion is, unless someone is in front of you that you care about, that is making it very clear on the things that you need to transform and change in yourself. And it sounds like what you're saying is that a man might be like, oh crap, I'm actually not ready to look inward and therefore I run away. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, but it can also be these days where the guy is like not saying that he's not ready, but saying that I just don't need that. That's not for me. I've already done the work. I've already gone to the ayahuasca retreat and hired the therapist and done those things that I needed to do. Why do I need to do more of it? And
Mm.
healing and deepening into purpose and getting more devoted to, our values in life, that's like an endless practice. It's like you talked about it in one of your episodes about Kabbalah, and it's like you could spend a whole lifetime like studying about Kabbalah. Like it never ends. Like there's always more. And so the minute that we get too comfortable in a relationship, especially, is the minute that we might also start to lose ourselves a little bit. Because what we'll find is that we're getting the love from that other person. We're getting the hug, we're getting the kiss, maybe we're getting the intimacy at night. But like sometimes we just forget to continue to work on ourselves and support ourselves and to love ourselves the way we were when we were trying to attract that other person into our lives.
You might have just nailed it there. I think you're right. I mean, I've even been guilty of that. Kabbalah is very important to me. And I even was in relationships where I actually stepped away from Kabbalah because I was like, oh, I've done the work, I found the person. Not like really like that, but more so just like it didn't feel important to continue that depth of self-discovery and actualization and understanding. And to that same point, in a relationship, and maybe this is also part of it, like people just aren't ready to do the work. They aren't ready to look at the shadow. They aren't ready to have the tough conversations. They aren't willing to go there. And I love what you said, kind of going back to like the grass is always greener type feel. I mean, it is in a sense because we have all this access to the social medias, to the dating apps. Like there's someone around every, at this phase, virtual corner where even, I'm living in New York, like even living in New York, it's like there is someone hotter, smarter, more successful on every single block. And you can keep chasing that endless line of success and what you think is going to be the external fix. But you're so right. The water is going to be greener. I hope your water's not green. The
There
grass
is
is
like New York City is like the epitome of it, where you go there and you ask people, so what's the dating scene like in New York? They're like, oh my God, don't even get me started. Where it's so challenging because
right.
you make like one wrong move, you're like 1 hour too late to respond, and the person is like, boom, I'm done. I'm moving on from this person. Off. on to the next one. And right when you
Totally.
think like, yeah, like I finally found the guy, like he makes a lot of money and he works in tech, you know, I'm just kidding. But it's like, oh, he's seeing three other girls, you know? And you mentioned that before, and it's like that's not actually vulnerability. That's just cheating. That's just not being honest about your intentions. And
Hmm.
a lot of people get it twisted these days, thinking that they can't find the relationship that they want. And so instead they need to settle for the open relationship when they don't want to be in it, or for monogamy when they're not ready to, be monogamous. So like get clear on what it is that you actually want. And you mentioned before we even jumped on here, you're like, I'm getting off social media. Like that might be the best first step. And I could use a social media hiatus and break. And I know Kevin does those like 3 day fast.
Hmm.
And just get off social media. Try not to smoke or drink or do anything that's gonna like distract you and like pull you out of the now, and just start to get back to being present. The minute that you get super present is when you can turn up your intensity and you can play and make love with life in the same way that you would play and make love with your significant other.
Mm. So how do you think in this day and age, if you were to step away from the social medias, if you were to like kind of go on that route, do you think that it's more likely that connection gets easier, or do you think there's still that we've just been so messed up by what it has already done the past, I don't know, is it right to say 2 decades? I mean, how long have dating apps even been around? I haven't done my research on that.
But does it get easier for the person doing it or for the society as a whole?
Okay, that's a good point.
Because if it's just the person doing it, like, yeah, they'll step off of social media for a bit. And if that's what they're used to, it might be a little bit difficult, especially if they haven't been practicing or been taught about how to meet someone in public, which should be like taught in schools to guys, basically. That should be like a curriculum of like how to approach a girl that you think is beautiful and like do it in a non creepy way. And luckily, I was just like, I got to learn this skill and I mastered it. And you realize that no matter where in the world you go, besides like Afghanistan, like if you approach a beautiful woman in the right way, she's not going to be offended by it. She's going to be like flattered or just like, thanks, I got to go. I'm busy, and run on to her next thing that she's doing and just completely forget about you. And then if you do it enough times, it's like just a numbers game. You will find someone that thinks you're cute, that is like open to meeting you and exchanging Instagram
Hmm.
or WhatsApp or whatever. And like you've got a date that has so much more potential, is so much more interesting than meeting that person on Bumble or Instagram. But that's not the reality. Like the reality is Instagram's the number one dating app in the world these days. And most people spend so much time scrolling and optimizing and profile pics for Bumble, for Hinge, for Tinder, for Field, for all these applications. And it always leaves them wanting more because the dopamine hit is not just from the sex, it's also from like the swipe right where you make the match. It's also from like the notification when the person responds to you. It goes much deeper than
Hmm.
the biological level. Now it's on like a physiological level of we're just constantly in life searching for that thing that's going to validate our ego. And that's the thing that most people are afraid to admit is that they have an ego, but really like everyone has an ego. It's just like, do you have yours under control or are you not really self-aware?
I think this also just is such an like the core here is again communication between men and women because we all think I think it's literally just a matter of like we all actually think that the other one wants something that we're just projecting onto them. And maybe that's also, that false narrative of like why we get so like caught up. And there is a lot of fear with being honest and saying like, this is what I'm desiring, or this is how I'm feeling about this because of what you said in like rejection. And yeah, rejection is going to suck. And especially like, starting out. But what if you're in something, like in it, whether that's you have a connection, maybe it's not defined, whatever that means. I also have a whole other theory about what a relationship even is at this point. I think it's just a social construct of like what other people want to do and say that to like put you in a box. And it's like, oh, they're
You should
together.
come
What does
down
that
to
mean?
Brazil because in Brazil they have like different stages of like a relationship where at first you're like ficar is you're like staying with them. Maybe you're like spending nights with them, but you're not yet like dating. So there's like different like stages of relationships to get into the boyfriend and girlfriend dynamic. And even then, it's like there is this, are we really ready for namorar? So in different societies, it really changes. And the more you travel, the more you see that. But yeah, I think that these days the lines get blurred. And so I'll just, I'll kind of touch on what you said a second ago. So I was in this relationship recently, and it was like we had the conversations when we started out about what we wanted, but then once we got to know each other better, we realized that like what we wanted was a little bit different than what we heard the first time, and what we
Oh,
felt when we were in the dopamine endorphin rush honeymoon phase, which is usually somewhere around the first 2, 3, 4 months. And so for the first like 3 months, it didn't matter whether we were in person, on a trip, long distance, like any of the red flags were like completely overlooked. And we're like, no, I'm in love. This person's gonna be my partner for life. We're gonna even have babies and we're gonna do beautiful things together. And then when you start to get to that place where maybe you start living together, or you start traveling together, or maybe work becomes more challenging, what often comes out is like the truth, like the other side of who you are. Not only when things are good and when you're happy, but also when things are rough and when you're sad. And you can see a lot about a person in that state. And then you have to come to grips with, okay, now I'm starting to get to really know this person. How deep do I really want to go?
I think that's what I call the cupcake phase, that dopamine sort of like thing that you're talking about. And I've just gotten to a place in my life where I'm like, well, I don't even want the cupcake phase. Why are we bonding with all the dopamine and the sex hormones and blah 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 when we could actually just be getting to know each other on a person to person level? And I think for me and what I've like from my lens, I should say, and from what I've witnessed, you bond so much faster and easier with that, and you kind of get clouded where the rose colored spectacles come on. Like you said, you don't see the red flags. And it's like, what if you just take that off the table completely? Just get to know the person in front of you. Then maybe we have a better shot. Now, I don't, again, that's just my view on it. And I don't know if the man would be like yes or no. So maybe you could speak to that. But I think that's where a lot of these issues come up, because there's the attraction and the chemistry and all this stuff. And it's like, that's all great, cool, and fine. But to your point, you haven't had the tough conversations of like, this is what I actually want. This is what I said, but you heard X. And we do that. That's the problem. We hear what we want to hear. And so it's, again, kind of twofold. How do we not keep doing that? How do we actually bridge the gap between male and female communication and get away from this sort of like perfect cupcake Candyland world that we create when we first meet someone and
Mhm.
connect with them, and actually like, well, then gosh, this, I don't even know what I'm saying, because then it's like, well, is this too real? Is this, that there's not room for play? Like, I don't know. It's just, what's the right thing to do? Because I think we're all just like walking around like chickens with our heads cut off, just like, oh my God, I have no idea how to deal with this society anymore or just how to function.
Yeah, yeah, but like the right thing to do, as corny and neo-spiritual as it sounds, is always to do like what your heart is truly telling you to do. And when you start to overanalyze the situation, that's also where you start to make decisions that are not actually coming from like what you really truly want, but what you think the other person wants to hear or what is not going to hurt you. And to say, and to like to put rules on it, like, okay, we're just going to get to know each other. And if that moment comes, like, even if it's right, like, I'm not going to kiss him. Or if there's that moment to
Oh,
like
yeah.
escalate and to like go and do something, it's like, no, I'm going to wait, I'm going to wait, I'm going to wait. And I think there's a danger there too, where you might miss the opportunity to light the fire. So, like, if I had that moment to light the fire, I got to take it. It's an opportunity. It might not come every day. It's like there are many people that you could fall in love with in life, but if you keep waiting and waiting and waiting for the right one to appear, you're never going to meet them. You've got to be able to be open that when that right person does appear, that you are going to be able to let them in the door and to connect with them and to open up to them vulnerably. And so many of us are just thinking like, oh yeah, there'll always be another one. There'll always be another one. And I start to meet people in their 50s, they're in their 60s, they're in their 40s, and they're not meeting the other one. They're lonely. They're frustrated. You know, I just talked to a guy today. He's going through a 3-year divorce, and
Mm.
he's challenged. So yeah, the faster we can like open up and really get to know each other on a physical, emotional, and mental level, I think the better. Because then it just comes down to, do you want to devote yourself to going through the challenges in the relationship? Do you want to see it through to its potential? Or are you just looking for a short fling? It's not even a one night stand that people are looking for anymore. It's almost just like, I just want to feel validated. Do I just want to get that validation for the night? And for women, that is so disgusting because they feel used, like their body is just being used. But I mean, I think also for men, it's really disgusting because men, one of the reasons why they, you know, become into infidelity and they go off and start using porn and start, doing things that they shouldn't be doing is because they don't know how to like hold in the sexual energy, that chi energy, and really preserve their sacredness. And so, you know, I think this is the one point maybe in this episode where we disagree, where I feel like push pull is super important because sometimes we need to take a break for a few days, not talking to that other person, and that's okay. And it might even be a week, it might even be more. Create time to really see what happens when you pull away. Do you still feel the longing for that person? Do you miss them? Do you really want to be with them? Do you really want to devour them? Or are you just using them as, a crutch to lean on because you don't have your own shit together?
You just spoke to my soul then. I mean, I had a conversation with someone recently, and he was telling me about his relationship with his wife. And they have children, they're super in love, but they're not always doing things together. He is in aviation, he's traveling, she's at home. She's a powerhouse in and of herself, has her own stuff going on. But what I love about their dynamic is he can be on the road for weeks at a time. And it's like they might not talk all the time, but they're two independent, solid pillars. Now, to me, that is the foundation. And that is what I strive and what I would want to build with someone, where we don't need to always be like constantly communicating. And that to me is just the codependency trap that I think is a whole other conversation. But having like, yes, have that time where you're on your own, where you're, doing that trip with going back to what you said, like that person's not going to always come on that trip with you. You're going to have different interests. You're going to want to go to different dinners. You're going to do that. Abso-freaking-lutely. I think what I'm saying about the push pull more, it has to do with like the chase and the game of like, I see what you're saying from your lens of like, it's more of a dance and it's not necessarily like it always has to be, we're always just like completely in tandem. I don't think that either. I think there's space for both again. And that's the paradox here. And that's the paradox of everything in life, that we realize it's always both for some reason. And two people can be right and two people can be wrong and it can still be a mess or whatever.
Yeah,
But
because everything is one, and you look at like the yin and the yang and like how they fit together, and you have to come back to it's the universe, the universe. So it's your universe that you're creating and that you're crafting. So the other person that you're talking to is just a mirror reflection of yourself. And so sometimes when it's not going well, it's as hard as it is to admit, there's something inside of you that's not going well. There's something inside of you that's out of alignment. And that's why those relationships over and over again are repeating themselves in like a traumatic fashion.
yeah. I have a question for you. What would be something that would make you as a man feel more safe around vulnerability or honesty for us like women to sort of embody or to practice or to be aware of? Because you said being honest and open can be kind of tough, or like not really, like where can we make you feel more safe, or how?
Yeah. Yeah. And just as much as like where can a woman make a man feel more safe, it's like how can a man make a woman feel more safe? But I guess to first answer your question about like, oh, what does a woman need to do? I think it's like not unload everything into a text message or a voice note, or like when she's like on her cycle or like PMSing, like going into some emotional breakdown that the man might be able to handle and not take things personally, but like the woman also needs to be able to control herself and say like, I really want to talk to you about something and it's really serious, and are you open to having like a deep conversation with me? And just making sure that the guy is responding from a mature place where he's like creating comfort and safety to step into that container. And that could work both ways. But when he steps into that container, maybe even articulating a disclaimer like, I know this might sound a bit emotional, or I know that maybe not everything I'm going to say you're going to like understand, or I'm definitely not trying to like attack you or anything like that. I just want to share with you how I'm feeling. Is that cool that I share that? And then sharing that from that place so that he has that disclaimer and he's reminded not to take it personally. And then sometimes what I see often also on the Instagram stories is like it could be for both partners, but let's say the woman is opening up to the man. The man does not need to be the therapist. He does not need to be the father. He just needs to listen. He just needs to understand. He just needs to hear where she's coming from.
Totally.
And the more that he does that from a place of presence, of just breathing into the moment, of just keeping that strong eye contact and feeling into the body in the place where maybe it's uncomfortable, she will respect him more than if he tries to give her help and change her. Because although you may change in a relationship, you don't want your partner to be telling you how you should live your life.
Definitely. I think also women are scared of being too much. And that's been a common theme again. And I was having a conversation with a girlfriend recently about that, where a man can ask like, "Oh, what do you think about this?" And he's asking think, and we respond with feel. And I think that might also be just a major disconnect, because men, and maybe I'm wrong and this is not all men, but are more going to be on the logistical side, more on the brain oriented side, where women were more emotional, more embodied, potentially, if we're like in our feminine, if we're in our higher vibration,
It's
right?
like that's the masculine. Like the masculine is the mind and the
Yeah,
feminine is the heart.
exactly. And I think that also is a big disconnect, because when I'm asked like, well, what do you think about this? It's like, I'm going to respond with how I feel. I don't necessarily go straight to the mind. And then I've noticed with men, like if I'm like saying, well, what do you feel about this? I'm saying, how do you feel about this? And he's telling me how he thinks. And I'm like, but this is literally not legit. Like, this isn't logic. This is emotional. Like, so I think that's where a lot of what I've noticed, if I really break it down, the actual logistical standpoints of like the two pillars and the identity of communication, mind, heart, and how we sort of bridge the gap. Because again, for me, I'll speak for Jojo, not all women, don't want to be like making broad generalizations here, but I will go to the personal because I am going to the emotional, and emotions are personal. But if I go and I listen actually to what he's saying of like, well, it's not X, Y, and Z, that will logically make sense, right? But I'm still so used to embodying that response rather than thinking about it, where vice versa, maybe the man is more heady about it rather than being like, well, how do I actually feel? So that just kind of like was a light bulb moment for me when you were talking.
I love it. And I feel like a lot of people can really benefit because at the core, what do we all really want? Connection. We want to find that love, that lasting love, the healthy love, the one that soothes our souls and that excites our bodies
Mm-hmm.
and puts peace in the mind and fills our heart.
Before I let you go, David, I want to get messy with you. So we're going to break it down mentally, emotionally, spiritually. So my first question for you, mentally, what assumptions do you think men and women commonly make about each other in communication?
So I think there's the assumption on women's part that men like just want sex
Oh, yeah,
or
true.
don't want a relationship
Mm-hmm.
or aren't willing to get emotional. And I think that it's somewhat true, but with the right person that's showing up the right way, a lot of men, they really do want something more serious, more stable. And with men towards women, I think it's that men are thinking that women want the guy to pay for everything, to take care of everything, to say all the right things, to show up on time, to be held to this, like this higher standard. And that can be a lot of pressure on men, especially depending on their childhood and also on their work life. And
Mm-hmm.
also, men think that all women want a relationship, and that's not true. And that a lot of women like are enjoying their promiscuous days and are enjoying traveling and being single and being free and just dating and actually they want to just have more fun and have more laughs and more late nights with a bottle of wine and a great movie up on a balcony somewhere in the middle of Manhattan. Like that's what will make them feel amazing. So yeah,
You and
that's
your
my answer.
rom-com analogies.
Okay, one advice for all men out there is drumroll. You have to read like 50 Shades of Grey and you have to read books like that to really understand like female psychology because yeah, it's weird, but like it's true. It's true.
I can't answer to that because I've never read that book. I've seen the
It's
movie,
okay.
but
It's for men, it's not for women. Like that's the thing that's backward. Like women watch that, but really men should be studying that.
emotionally, do you feel like there's space for men to express their full range of emotions in relationships?
I think that's a tough one because if we are kind of stepping into polarity and like making sure that there are roles in the relationship and it's not just everything is completely blurred, which I think is that's the nightmare when there's no compartmentalization. And Japan does it really well. In Japan, they've got like the family, sex, the work, the love, the video games, like everything is compartmentalized. But
Really?
in our Western societies, everything is like a smorgasbord. It's like all on the platter, it's all mixed up. And I think that it's, it's really tough because the man should have a therapist. The man should have a men's coach and a men's community where he can talk about this shit. And when he's with his woman, like he should share sometimes, like things that are coming up and like do his best to talk about his feelings. But he shouldn't have to like unload on the woman. That's just going to come off as unattractive, especially if he does it too much. So I think it kind of is a gray area where you want the man to open up, but if he's like a little bit too emotional, can be a turnoff. And yeah, I think that answers your
Hmm.
question.
Yeah, it does. Spiritually, what patterns have you had to unlearn in order to show up better in relationships?
Well, I think one of the patterns is like don't date just because of looks. Like you get to a point where you felt like you found the perfect like person, but you connected with them more on a physical level than an emotional level. And
That's why
then,
I say avoid the cupcake phase. You don't know if what you don't know.
yeah, but if the icing is good, it doesn't hurt to try it, right? So
I mean, but that can
I
come in
feel
time.
so I talked about like dating not only because you're attracted to the person physically, but also like emotionally and spiritually. Um, Another pattern that I had to unlearn is like that like when you're in a relationship, you need to be like talking every day. And in like Israel, where I used to live, and I know in certain cultures and certain women, they want to get that like good morning text and that good night text. And it's like, yeah, sometimes like that's not necessary. Give more space and give the other person more of a chance to think about you, to miss you,
Hmm.
to be in their own experience, and that you're not on top of them all the time. And you don't need to jump to conclusions. Oh my God, he didn't text me back tonight. Is he like cheating on me? Like, what I've seen is usually if there's like infidelity going on in the relationship, it will appear. Like, you'll know. It's pretty hard to hide that. You
Totally.
can also find it really difficult to hide it when you get really intimate and physical with another person. So I think that's just it. It's just like don't jump into it just because you want to ravage them. And even when you do and you love each other, like go on the solo trip and encourage your partner to do the same.
Oh, I love that. I think interdependence and freedom and space is something that is so, so lacking. And it is, again, that societal sort of container of like what a relationship means. And it's you get to write the rules. Who, like, what is together? You care about each other, you love each other, there's a connection, like, you are devoting time that direction. Like, that's the way relationships should be. And maybe that's just my old school sort of like rose colored spectacles, hopeless romantic, even though I know this actually exists. So maybe it's none of those things also. Again, paradox, polarity. But yeah, have the space, do the trip, don't talk all the time. Have your entire other life. Like, don't feel the need to always be in constant communication, because that is going to, over time, just push you guys further away. Again, paradox, we love. But yeah, I mean, I just spoke in like a circle, but there was something else I wanted to say on that, which was, there's some really key things that I've taken away from this conversation, from the space, from playing, from pressure. And I think the bottom line is all about, well, everyone's going to draw their own conclusions, but it really just is about allowing that breath, allowing time, patience, and ease at which that comes. And then when that does come, the presence that is the capsule for to hold that, you know? And I think I'm really glad we have this conversation, because I don't think it's talked about enough. And maybe it is, but like from like a psychological standpoint, rather than two people's just perspectives of what they've had to deal with. So David, thank you so much for coming on Inside Out. Where can people find you? And your new dating and relationship coaching that you're starting back up again. Just kidding. But maybe I'm not.
Yeah, I usually run online masterminds for male entrepreneurs that are looking to align their purpose with prosperity. And so we'll be working on things like branding and sales communication, and also connecting from a more spiritual place. But yeah, I think this conversation inspired me too, and maybe I will create something.
I love it. So
Yeah.
back to my original question, which you love to avoid sometimes. Where can people find you?
So my IG, it's at Dave Gold Evolve on YouTube as well. And yeah, reach out, say what's up. David S. Goldstein on the other platforms. I just like to connect. I thought it was really cool how we connected. You just like followed me from the live. We had a cool, like, easy conversation. We supported each other. I really appreciate your invitation on here. And I think there's like really bright things ahead for you because of your energy. You show up and you're very vulnerable, but also you're very knowledgeable, and you have like really strong opinions, which is really good. I hope you love this podcast, because I think it has a lot of potential to grow.
Thank you. And I do love Inside Out. Well, this will all be linked in the show notes, and you guys know where to find me. Also linked in the show notes. But if you still are on the Instagram thing, it will be at _insideout.podcast. And you can click on the bio where my Substack is. But you guys, Substack is where I am. So if you really want to connect, find me there. And have a great week, guys. Bye.